very special guest on the WHIP program. His name is Don Bell. He is the sports director for CBS3. He was formerly an anchor at ESPN and Fox Sports 1, and he is an owner of Valerian Steel. Don Bell, how are you? What's going on?
What's up, guys? Apparently you're doing your research, or at least stalking me on Twitter. I do indeed own Valerian Steel. I'm a dangerous man.
He's a dangerous man. Winter is coming, Don, and it is a bleak one with the state of Philadelphia sports. My goodness, I don't even know where to begin, but let's start with some birds. You know, I don't know how much of practice you get to see, but Jason Peters, Connor Barwin, Ryan Matthews all out of practice this week, and who knows if they're going to play. But those are some serious losses for the team. We haven't seen this Eagles team without Ryan Matthews yet this season, and obviously Sam Bradford's not going to play this week. So what do you expect to see out of Mark Sanchez this week?
Well, here's the thing. We've seen Mark Sanchez in this offense before. We saw him last year, 9 games. He had 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 3 fumbles, right? So, 14 touchdowns and 14 turnovers if you're keeping track. And the good thing about Mark Sanchez is he does run an explosive offense, at least what we've seen with the Eagles. He can push the tempo way better than Sam Bradford. So when it's time to scoot in 2-minute warning situations or under 4 minutes to go and a half, he's well capable of doing that. The big issue you have with Mark Sanchez is that he makes the big mistake. So there are about 2 or 3 plays a game, maybe more, that make you say, what are you doing? So those are the throws that really concern you, especially when he's moving at a rapid pace. So I expect to see more of the same. I wouldn't be surprised to get 2 touchdown passes and, of course, an interception or so. We saw the bone-crushing interception from him actually in the last game. Now, he gets a mulligan for that or a pass because, obviously, he came in off the bench, and it's hard to do that in the NFL.
Yeah, he just seems to make that crucial turnover. That just seems to be a common theme in Mark Sanchez's career. It seemed like this past Sunday, when he tried to make that throw, he thinks he can throw it just about anywhere he can. It didn't seem like he was setting his feet. Now, maybe that's rust, because obviously it's his first game of the season. Who knows? But I was talking with somebody this week, and this is the beauty of sports talk radio, and talking sports in general, with people at a bar. You bounce ideas off each other, and you may have thought of or the other person may have thought of something you haven't thought of. And somebody mentioned to me that Mark Sanchez is exposing our receivers. They're getting licked. I mean, how much do you read into that?
Well, I look at that. Here's the thing. In that game, you just have to give him a pass. And I know what people are talking about. When he threw that ball to Jordan Matthews, Jordan got cut in half. That was, you got blued up, as they say. And yeah, he left him out. He hung him out to dry. And that's not something you want to see. And he had another pass in that game. I can't remember to which wide receiver that also left that player exposed. But I think in that situation, your heart's racing. You're coming off the bench. You're just trying to make a play, and you're not thinking the way you would normally approach these situations if you had a week of practice or more. So I'm going to give him a pass for that. I hope that's not something we're going to see this week because Jordan Matthews is lucky. I mean, that play where he got hit along the sideline, I believe it was inside the red zone, he's lucky that he got the wind knocked out of him. I was surprised he didn't get up and walk off after that because that was a nasty blow he took.
Yeah, he got crushed. I mean, Jordan Matthews is a tough guy. Fortunately, it's his second year in the league. He's learning the ropes. Welcome to the NFL. Obviously, we talked about this earlier. Ryan Matthews is presumably out this week. He's listed as probable, but he's probably not going to get a lot of reps because he's dealing with post-concussion symptoms. You rarely see guys come back from that within a week. Now, Sanchez and DeMarco Murray seem to have some communication problems. Now, at the start of the season, we were talking about how, Sam Bradford will give him the wait-and-see approach, and he's consistently gotten better. But DeMarco Murray, you can't say the same. At what point do we start questioning how many reps and touches DeMarco Murray should be getting?
Well, the arrow is pointing up for DeMarco Murray when you consider where he started, right? So for the first 4 games, I believe he had a total of 47 yards, which is awful, god-awful, right?
Yeah.
In that Cowboys game in Week 2, he had 13 carries for just 2 yards. So when you perform that poorly, there's only one way to go, and that's up. So over the last, I'd say 5 games or so, Actually, let's get rid of the Miami game, right? Let's take that one out. But the 4
Can we redo it?
That he was averaging 85 yards rushing per game. So he has gotten a lot better. I do like Ryan Matthews better in this offense. I just think he's quicker to the punch in terms of getting to the offensive line. I think he's more decisive with picking his holes. And he's a guy that they're going to miss because I believe he scored a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games, something like that. So stats are a little blurry for me because I tweeted this stuff out on Sunday when I was actually at the game. But, he has a nice stretch of scoring for the Eagles and making big plays. And with fewer reps, he's been a way more efficient running back. And to me, right now he's better suited for this offense. It should be the starter, but I do understand the Eagles' dilemma when you go out and you pay a guy $40 million as they did to DeMarco Murray with $18 million guaranteed. You got to play him. You got to play it. You got to give him an opportunity because if you don't, it's a bad sign to the rest of the NFL that hey, if you sign a free agent contract with the Eagles, they don't have the patience to wait it out on you if you get out to a slow start. So they do have to play DeMarco Murray and see where it goes. I just hope that this week that Ryan Matthews is able to shake the cobwebs and get in the lineup. Interesting
take there about Murray and the rest of the league, looking at the Eagles as a potential employer. I like that. We're talking with Don Bell. He's the sports director at CBS3. Don, I was listening to WIP this morning, and Mike and Ike were talking about Sam Bradford and potentially extending him. Based on what you've seen, would you extend him for, let's say, another 2 or 3 years?
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. You know what? Before I say that, at what price? Right? Because everybody has a price. So if you can extend them with limited guaranteed money and it's a contract that's advantageous to you, sure, absolutely. Why not? Why not sign him? But he doesn't have to be your guy. You don't know Sam Bradford's yet. There's not people out there knocking on the door to get Sam Bradford in their lineup, right? So, yeah, I would look at re-signing him, but the price has got to be right. I believe there was a report of from one of our colleagues, Howard Eskin, not too long ago, that said that the Eagles tried to offer Sam Bradford a contract extension before the season. There was something in the neighborhood of, I want to say, $18 million per year for 4 years. Now, what a disaster that would have been, right? So, if that is in fact true, they dodged the bullet because he's been awful. So, it's really kind of a wait-and-see approach, and you also want to see who else is out on the market.
Yeah, there really isn't a whole lot else out there on the market. I mean, you always go through the motions of, well, if you get rid of Bradford, who are you going to replace him with? And
right.
That 4 years, $72 million, my goodness, the Eagles dodged an enormous bullet there.
Right.
And I don't know who's more stupid, Bradford and his agent for not taking that contract, or the Eagles for offering it to him in the first place. But let's move on. From one football team to another, Temple football has one of their biggest matchups of the season against an in-conference team, number, I believe, 13 now, Memphis. No. Memphis is in the 20s. We'll get back to the ranking later. But nonetheless, Memphis is a really good football team. They have Paxton Lynch, who is a mobile quarterback. They run the option. Temple seems to struggle against teams that play in the option. And Paxton Lynch is regarded as possibly a top 2 quarterback in this upcoming draft. Now, in the past couple games, ever since the Notre Dame game, the Temple defense has really fluttered. What do you expect out of the Temple defense when it comes to containing this great quarterback?
Yeah, it's hard, especially in college, when you're dealing with quarterbacks who have pro prospects. Those guys are typically, they're pro prospects for a reason. When they're highly touted, it comes at a cost. And it's something that you have to be concerned with if you're Temple, because it means, especially if he's running that offense, he has some athletic ability that you don't typically see from that quarterback position at the college level. So I expect Temple to play well. I really do. I'm shocked by how they played the last game, and at the same time, I'm really proud of those guys considering how they've handled themselves all this season. It is not easy to be a Johnny-come-lately. In other words, these teams that have pedigree, Notre Dame, you go down the list, Baylor now developing that.
Penn State.
When you have pedigree, there's just a natural belief that you can do things, that you can accomplish things, because guys before you have done it. And Temple, they don't have that. They don't have that to draw on. So these seniors are really carrying a really heavy weight, and I think they've done an excellent job of it so far this season. And when I watch them, I'm continually surprised by how well they play and how much composure they play with. Obviously the last game is an outlier, but overall, they haven't shown me anything to make me believe that they cannot get it done.
Yeah, Don, it's definitely an outlier. You know, if you don't finish the job against Notre Dame, it's understandable. Coach Rule hasn't really said or owned up to the idea that, you know, the team is a little deflated, if you will, after that Notre Dame game. But I feel like they kind of are, just watching them. But
no question. No question. To cut you off real quick, after that Notre Dame game, we went to practice the following week, and I can't remember who they were playing in the next game. Was it Central Florida? I don't know. I have to look at the schedule. But anyway, they were trying to prep for the next
SMU.
game after that. SMU. Okay, there you go. It was awful. I'm in a terrible season. But we went to practice, and Matt Rule said, hey, I don't think we're over it yet. He said that's the scary part.
Oh, he did say that.
There's a bit of a haze from players and coaches. So, I think that's a human reaction. I totally understand it, especially when you're talking about college kids. You're talking about kids who are 18, 19, 20 years old. You know, that is the highlight of your career, and actually one of the highlights of your life, being on that type of national stage. It is very difficult to recover from something like that, especially when you were that close. I almost think that maybe it would have been easier had they just gotten the doors blown off. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I guess there's something that you can only ask those guys, but I think they've handled themselves pretty well, and I'm hoping that they realize that everything that they've wanted to accomplish is still out there for them.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the tough part. Yeah, 2 tough losses, but you still have a chance to do some stuff that has never been done at Temple. Still.
Yeah, they could, if they run the table in this conference and their games, they could definitely make a New Year's Day bowl. That's still in the realm of possibility, despite it looking more bleak as the season rolls on. We're talking with Don Bell. He's the CBS 3 sports director, rather, in Philadelphia.
Hey, Don, this is JT. Once again, thank you for joining us. My question would be, let's say Temple loses against Memphis. You know, they go into the... You know, they end up they do clinch their spot in the championship game, but they end up losing that game. Is this season, does that take away from what they've accomplished this season, like all the loss to Notre Dame, the loss to Memphis, and the loss in the championship game, or is just the whole, you
just threw in a new wrinkle. Like if they lose to Notre Dame and they lose, which they have done, and they lose to Memphis, but they go to the championship game and win. That's different. Now, if they lose all 3 of those big games, it tempers the enthusiasm a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, you guys are on campus. You know better than I in this situation. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, me personally, I think from what Temple has, done in the past. I mean, even just from me being here, I came in as a freshman and they went 2-10. And then last year, an increase in wins, but no bowl game. If you make it to, a bowl game, even the championship game, it's been a great experience. Just, the roller coaster ride that it's been, beating Penn State, going undefeated, the whole college game day experience. I mean, it's going to hurt, losing, if we do lose to Memphis and losing that championship game. But I think overall the experience has been, a great one as a Temple student.
Yeah, Don, I'm privileged. I transferred in. This is my first football season as a Temple student, so you're fortunate and you're happy to see something like this play out. I mean, we talked about it before. I think it's this kind of like snowball effect. When they went into Notre Dame, they had so much momentum, and then right after the game, it's like the ball is not rolling, or it's like sputtering, and it's just not quite there. But hopefully, the Owls can take care of business against 21 ranked Memphis at home, because this game is huge. It is huge.
Yeah, it absolutely, totally huge. I mean, it is a big season, no matter what happens. I mean, you hope that if they lose every game the rest of the way, of course, it changes things. But if they win the games that they're expected to win, and go to a championship game, I think it's still great. I mean, it's great strides for the program. Of course, if you beat Memphis, it's a big thing. If you win the championship game and go to a bowl, even better. I mean, you just know the kind of impact that stuff has on recruiting and the way Temple is perceived. I mean, that's almost the biggest, the one obstacle that they have is the opponent on the field. The other one is the perception, I mean, they got to go out there and they got to beat the perception that they're not a major program. And, sometimes perception is reality, and that really is the reality. They have not been a program to be reckoned with, and
No.
They're getting there. They're getting there. You just hope that the head coach sticks around.
Actually, yeah. Well, history says otherwise, but history also says 10 years ago that this was a football team that wasn't in a conference, didn't even get a win. They've come such a long way. You talk about the program and recruiting. There's a hot topic of conversation on campus right now about whether or not there should be a football stadium built on campus. Now, a lot of people say it'd be great for the program, it'd be great for the student body, because when people come here and visit, they say, hey, look at that. I want to be a part of this. And for long term, that very well could be right and what the school needs. But I'm just wondering, in your eyes, is building a stadium on campus a good idea?
I think so. I really do. Because here's the thing. Right? If you're Temple, you played Notre Dame at home, you had 69,000. How many do you have when you're playing South Florida?
Maybe 15 or 18.
Between 15 and 20,
how many do you have? Right. So you're in the stadium. It's off campus. There's nothing like an on-campus experience when it comes to a big game. I mean, can you just imagine if that Memphis game were on campus this weekend? It's just different. It's just different. I mean, listen, hey, there's Uber, there are easy ways, there's the Broad Street line, there's easy ways to get to the link, but nothing beats walking out of your dorm room and walking to the stadium, tailgating on campus. I mean, that's college, man. That is a classic experience. You want that. You want that. And I think it's good to show off once again to recruits and the prospective students. It changes the dynamic of half the school year. I mean, it really does. Mm-hmm. It really does. I think it's massive. I think it would be great if they had one. I really do.
Yeah, we're talking with Don Bell from CBS. He's the CBS 3 director. Don, just to go back to the stadium talk. I know a lot of controversy with the stadium talk is the surrounding community. And, how the people that already live here, Temple is, buying out residences and buying out blocks basically to put up new buildings, as we speak. So this new stadium, there's a lot of talk of where would the stadium go, what houses or, community centers will get knocked down to replace that. What are your thoughts on like the whole, community aspect of it?
That is way above my pay grade. It really is. I mean, because now you're talking about town and gown relationship, town and gown relations, as they say. And I really couldn't speak on that. I mean, I totally understand, from the community aspect, you want to maintain some type of community feel to it. But if you're Temple and you're expanding and you have the money to do so, I just don't see why you wouldn't do it. Obviously Philadelphia is going through massive changes right now. I think for the better in many ways. There's a housing boom. It's gentrifying in many places. Whether you're talking about Northern Liberty, Bella Vista, on the south side of the city, certainly in the area where you guys are, Temple, neighborhoods close by, Francisville. I mean, things are evolving quickly, and I think Temple's a big part of that. So I understand how there would be pushback from the community if you're building a stadium that's going to seat, I don't know what the projection there was.
About 35,000.
35,000. I mean, 35,000 on a Saturday, what that does for community, it definitely injects some type of, economic boom, but also there's a hassle that come along with that, with having, 30,000. Many of those people will be outsiders. Not everyone who goes to these games obviously will be students who can just walk to campus, but you're going to have people driving on campus, and it changes things a little bit. So, I mean, I really don't know. They don't live in the community, but I can understand the push from both sides.
Hey, Don, we know you're up against it. You have a promo to shoot in about 4 minutes. Just one final question for you. I really wanted to talk some Sixers with you, but we'll get to that maybe at another time, potentially having you on the show on a later date. But last question. Don, what's your go-to Thanksgiving food?
Listen, it's going to sound like a cop-out, but it's the real deal. Anything that Mom cooks.
Hey.
Like legit. Like anything Mom cooks is like a good way to go. Whether that's mac and cheese, whether it's I don't know, man, candied yams. You go through the list. The barbecue chicken. It's just, come on. Anything Mom cooks is a good way to go. And I wish you were listening to this, because then that would inspire her even more.
Well, I'm going to try to get this to your mom, Don. Thank you so much for your time today. This was a blast. Really appreciate it. We just talked to Don Bell, the CBS 3 sports director, who's formerly at ESPN and Fox Sports 1, and he owns Valerian Steel. Thanks so much, Don.
All right, appreciate your time, guys. Have a good one.
Winter is coming. Take care, Don.